this episode of the Growth Catalyst podcast, I was joined by Karolin Helbig, who is a consultant and the co-author of the Psychological Safety Playbook. Karolin explains how culture is the soil that strategy needs to grow, that plans only work when everyday behaviours changed accordingly. The book is full of practical how-tos. In fact, there are 25 small, tangible actions that leaders can learn and use to build a speak-up culture. CEOs will learn why psychological safety is the make or break ingredient for team performance, innovation, and well-being, even when you've hired the best people. We talked about the hardest part, which is managing your own emotional reactions under pressure, working out how to create a pause between the stimulus and your response. And Karolin shares some great CEO-friendly moves that you can implement immediately, like asking, "What am I missing?" And we unpacked that simple high-impact tools like yes and as opposed to yes but, which I absolutely love. It's a great way to stop killing ideas and conversations and unlock creativity. We finished talking about leadership resilience and how to stay grounded, maintaining self-awareness, reflecting on your behavior, and just making sure that you don't lose your values when you're working inside situations which are uncertain or the pressure is increasing, things that we're facing every day or in organizations. I really hope you enjoy this episode.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited to get stuck into our conversation. So, Karen, you're an author of, or co-author of the Psychological Playbook. So I'd really like to delve into that. Obviously, we're focusing on psychological safety and culture in the workplace. So for our listeners, could you give us a brief introduction of yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. And thank you, Collette, for the invitation. I'm excited to be here. I'm leadership consultant, and together with my co-author, Minette Norman, I wrote a book on psychological safety because what we found is, yes, psychological safety is a concept that has been around for quite some time. It's more and more businesses, companies are aware that it's really crucial to foster psychological safety in their teams. However, what's not so clear is how do we actually do it? How do we foster it? How do we create an atmosphere in a team where we have psychological safety, where we can all feel safe to speak up, to ask questions, to admit mistakes and things like that. So we wrote this book really for practical implementation, for really doing the psychological safety we all know is so important. And we offer in our book really a range, 25 really tangible small actions every one of us can practice to cultivate psychological safety. So we are kind of closing the gap between the why and what of psychological safety and then the how. And yeah, that's what we offer in the book.
Okay, great. So before we delve into that, why did you get there? Why did you write the book? What was your history to prior to writing the book?
Yeah, at some point I really realized that psychological safety is really the secret sauce, the make or break of determining if a team can be successful or not, if a team is really innovative or not. So it doesn't really help if you have the most brilliant minds on a team and the best analysis and the most fabulous Excel model, if you don't have the safety in a team to really do great work together. So I was my background is in science, and I was for many years working with a top management consultancy. And that was more focused on the content, on analyzing things, and on the Excel model side of leadership. And then I realized what really is making the difference is the atmosphere in the team, how the people can work together, not only who you have on the team. And that was when I decided to focus particularly on this more human side of leadership. And psychological safety is really, I think, the most vital factor to make teams effective. And I was realizing we don't really have a very practical guideline. What can we actually do once we realize psychological safety is so important? And I'm thrilled to do workshops with leadership teams and working teams, to figure out a better way to work together and really fostering psychological safety.
Okay, so what would you say your area of expertise is in amongst all of that?
Yes, it's not only psychological safety, it's kind of the broad field of emotional intelligence, mindset, what used to be called the soft skills. So the human side of leadership, the human side of transformation, which I realized is the vital factor. When it's missing, the leadership won't be effective.
Yeah. And what drew you to this journey, to this work?
Yeah, it was a way with twists and turns, not linear. So starting in science and studying human biology with a PhD in human genetics, because I always wanted to understand the why. So why is it that human beings are functioning as a biological organism, really deep down to hormones and genes and so on. And then a twist to leadership consulting, because I wanted to broaden my perspective again, not focusing on one single question in the scientific field forever, but really broadening to a broader perspective. And yeah, then more focusing on the content and analyzing part of leadership, and then this turn more. No, what really matters is how you do it and how you interact with people, how you collaborate. And during my time in this top consultancy, I was part of many different teams, and I witnessed many different teams, and I saw how people really leave potential on the table, and how also people really suffer when psychological safety is not present and not cultivated. And companies put so much effort into recruiting great people, and I couldn't understand, once they have the great people around, they don't really use the full potential of the people, because you don't have the atmosphere to really flourish and to really bring your full potential to the team. And that made me shift and focus on these kind of vital human factors of working together.
And why do you love this area so much? Why do you love what you do?
Yeah, I'm really passionate about what I'm doing, and I think it's I see the rare occasion that two things come together. What I'm focusing on, helping people to not only be more effective and do better work and increase the bottom line, but so the impact, but also how you feel, the well-being, the joy. I think we can all be not only more effective at work, but happier at work. And I love that these two things are aligned, and I see psychological safety really as the key ingredient for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that leads really nicely into why culture is so important at work. Why is that such an important facet of any workplace?
Exactly.
Okay. So how does so when you're working with these leaders and leadership teams, how do you understand how the culture, so the work that you're doing around psychological safety, how does that underpin the company's strategy? Obviously, that's quite a broad question, but are there certain steps that our listeners could start thinking about and making sure that you're tying culture to strategy?
Yeah, I see this really as not only the fundament for the strategy, but really the soil you need in order that the strategy can really flourish and grow. And just recently, I had a large leadership workshop with the whole leadership team of a company, including the board members, and they focused in their strategy currently a lot on feedback culture, giving and receiving feedback, and moving away from once a year, three uh, full-fledged feedback to on the spot and more agile feedback. However, you can think about great strategy and make plans and have an initiative and write things down. And then the crucial step is, how do you make it a reality? How do you live it? And for that, you need culture. You need to change the way people interact with each other every day in small moments. And that's exactly where psychological safety comes in. And that's exactly what we offer in the book, small things we all can do. And for example, to bring this feedback culture to life, a lot of what I can offer or we can offer in the book helps with that. How you talk to people, how you listen to people, how you ask questions, and so on. How you deal with failure, for example, how you address mistakes. This is very relevant for psychological safety, and of course, a crucial part of the feedback culture. So I think really culture is the soil for strategy to come alive.
Very nice. Very nice. So in the book, obviously, there are 5 skin areas, if that's right. Communication, listening, controlling your emotions, thinking about failure and experimentation, and obviously an inclusive behavior. And when we had our last conversation, you had this brilliant question. So sort of in the communication area, you say, or respond rather. So yes, and rather than yes, but. Could you explain what you mean by that to our listeners? Because I think this is fascinating.
Oh, I love that you picked that, because it's an example of how very small shifts can make a huge difference. And we habitually respond with yes, but, right? And that's natural, because when you come up with a new idea, I immediately see what's not working and the negative, and we tried this again, it didn't work, and it can't work, and so on and so on. Yet it's natural that we jump to the negativity bias and so on. However, if I respond automatically with yes, but what's the result? The result is that I kind of kill your idea. I kill the creativity. I kill this seed of innovation. However, if I choose a more kind of deliberate response, despite my natural yes, but, and choose yes, and, what happens is that creativity is not killed, but I can build on what is innovative in your idea. And maybe a lot of a lot of the idea proposed might not work. However, there is always something to build on. So in our book, we refer to Shirzad Chamina from Positive Intelligence. In every idea, however crazy it is, there's 10%. 10% you can build on. Find the 10%. So, and yes, your brain naturally sees maybe the big part which is not working and jumps to that. However, you need to deliberately redirect your brain and prompt yourself, let's see what I can build on and build on that. Because then the result is we can foster creativity, or we can be more innovative. I don't kill your early idea, but rather I expand on it and make it better.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. And let's see how the long-term effect of this kind of new habit is. If we in a team practice more yes and, what will happen is people learn that they can come up with ideas which are not yet perfect, which are early, which are half-baked maybe.
Yeah.
And they can be sure that others don't kill these ugly babies. However, no, they kind of positively, constructively build on that. So this, in the long run, fosters that I can come up with innovative sparks, and we all can be more creative in the long run. Otherwise, I learn, oh, if you react with yes, but, and maybe not only yes, but, and kill my ugly baby, but also maybe I learn, oh, it's not good to come up with a half-baked idea or something like that. Then innovation is killed because everyone will increase their filters. What can I say? What's better not to say, not to share?
Yeah, it's a really interesting way of facilitating that, because I've been in so many meeting rooms where someone has said, there's no bad idea around here, and then people get immediately shot down with the but that's never going to work because. So I love the idea of yes and just trying to build upon a seed, a germ of something. Do you see it working well in companies?
Yes, absolutely. This is one of the small things we offer that teams find incredibly helpful. And I get feedback. I have teams now that I support for a longer time, and they share feedback how helpful this is, particularly in the long run, because then really culture shifts and people learn it's okay. It's not only okay to speak up, it's actually positive, and it's appreciated. And establishing kind of a speak up culture, that's something we all want to create. That's a big part of psychological safety. And I think just cultivating this habit of responding with yes and is a great way to foster exactly that. I don't say that always you should eliminate yes but and always say yes and. Of course, there are situations where it might be appropriate to point out what is the but, what is the kind of negative part. However, to become more deliberate, to choose how we respond, I think that's key.
Yeah, makes sense. So what are the other hard things that you see that teams find difficult to solve that help them succeed or fail?
Yeah. What keeps coming up, and I think probably is kind of the hardest thing to do, is what we in our book call play 3, managing your reactions. So how do you respond, or how do you react when you have a strong emotional response, when you are challenged, for example? Once you kind of foster the speak up culture and ask questions and invite people to share, maybe people share something you don't actually like, you don't agree with, or maybe you find really challenging, you find triggering. And how do you respond then? And I think the key here is something which is not at all new, but so important for a culture of psychological safety, and that is not to react automatically. but rather to stop and pause and breathe and then choose a better response than our automatic default. And that's exactly what Viktor Frankl in this famous quote referred to, that there is a space between stimulus and response.
Yeah.
A stimulus and reaction, and we can increase the space. Yes, it is hard,
Yeah.
but we can train ourselves to do so. And the more we train, the more we can really hardwire this as a new default. Or maybe it's not so easy to become a new default, but we increase the number of situations we manage to not react automatically and rather choose a better, more productive, wiser response.
Yeah, that's a part of coaching, is it? That deliberate thought around your behavior. It's incredibly impactful when you really sit back and think about things. What is the most pressing challenge that you see people are facing inside of business right now?
Yeah, I see that increasing uncertainty, increasing pressure, which makes it even harder to practice all of these small little moves which increase psychological safety, because we have this feeling we don't have the time. We don't have the time to pause. We don't have the time to ask for divergent viewpoints and so on. I think that's a misunderstanding, because we won't be quicker if we kind of don't do that. I think actually we will be quicker if we ask questions, if we pause and respond more productively, and so on and so on. However, I see the pressure really increasing, and this making it more difficult to practice these little psychological safety moves.
Yeah, which makes sense. And people get more pressured, more manic. It's really hard to just ground yourself. So if you had some time with a CEO or a leader, and obviously this is the Growth Catalyst podcast, what would you advise them? What would you tell them to either think about or put on their consideration list, or even start implementing inside of their business today?
My invitation would be to start small and start anywhere. Psychological safety might sound like a big thing, and maybe the CEO might think, oh, we need to do a big initiative or something which affords a lot of effort and a lot of time. And I would encourage them, no, it's not about doing extra stuff and things we don't have time for, particularly in these challenging times. No one has extra time. And that's not the point. It's not to do something on top. It's more changing the way we do things anyhow. And I would encourage them to pick one small thing and communicate that psychological safety is a priority, and it can be done in small everyday moments. And maybe be open about what's the one little thing I'm commit to be doing, and invite everyone to give feedback on that.
So could you give us something a bit more explicit? Obviously, people listening to this might not have read your book. Hopefully they'll go out and find it. But if they're listening to this, what's something that they could? You said you could do something small. What could that be?
Yeah, that could be anything. For example, asking better and different question. For example, the question, what am I missing? And just recently, an automotive company ran a pilot, and they were overwhelmed by the results of this pilot, and they proposed the team to ask the question in team brainstorming, what am I missing? Or as a team, what are we missing? And just introducing this little small question in all the team meetings changed completely the dynamics in the team. And people felt invited to raise their voice who stayed silent before. And ideas came out, which the team could build on, which wouldn't have been raised before. So small things like asking this question, or for example, another great practice is time boxed turn taking. Very quickly this can be done, particularly in big meetings with a lot of participants, and you don't have time, and maybe invite everyone to share before we go into longer discussion. Everyone for half a minute, 30-second, 20-second, share what's your key point, your key thought about XYZ. And then you can hear from everyone before kind of diving into specific aspects. And that's making meetings much more inclusive. And people, once they have a voice, ideally early in the meeting, it's more easy for them to speak up later in the meeting.
Mm.
So this also is a small thing which really can shift the culture.
Yeah, that's great. Good advice. And are there any questions that leaders should be asking, or CEOs could be asking of their teams, their leadership teams, about culture?
Yeah, culture might sound abstract, right? I would invite to think, what are the small behaviors you want to practice, and invite to really commit to practice one specific behavior which can be observable, and to hold people accountable and see, okay, did you practice what you committed to practice? So that culture bring it really down to observable behavior change. And I think it's a great idea to invite people to choose what they want to do, and then really see if they did what they committed to do, and adjust maybe, and experiment, and be more agile about kind of, what's the culture and how do we actually do it?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Are there anything that you think business leaders should be preparing for in the next 12 months? Nobody's got a crystal ball, but any sage advice?
For the upcoming year, for the year maybe one aspect which I think is really crucial is to foster self-awareness, particularly as a leader. And this is so challenging and difficult, particularly when pressure is increasing and stress level is high and so on. And the paradox is, the higher the stress level, the even more crucial it is to cultivate self-awareness, to stop and pause and reflect. Someone said, we don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. And I'd like to invite people to think about, how can you in these challenging times cultivate for your own self-awareness, reflection, and so on. Also, this can be a small practice, like, I don't know, 3-minute reflection after at the end of the day. What went well? What do I want to improve? and how will I improve?
Yeah.
I think that's so crucial, particularly in with all these challenges which we are in and which probably will be accelerating over the next 12 months.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I was just this morning listening to the news.
yeah.
Actually, economically, politically, it's the landscape's changing fast. And then I was listening to the PwC CEO report, what's going on in 2025 and what does 2026 look like. And 70% of CEOs are concerned about growth. So that's a very high stress position to be in. Lots of different stakeholders relying on you. So yeah, I guess trying to take the opportunity to reflect and work with your leadership teams on questioning your self-awareness and that starting point inside is probably very good advice. Is there anything else that you would want to share with our listeners?
I think it's important not to, how can I put it, not to lose faith or to stay the course and always, what I think is helpful to align with what's your deepest motivation, what is really driving you, what is important, what do you care about, who do you want to be as a person, as a human being, and somehow finding a way to realign with this kind of deeper sense of yourself, of what it is that is important to you, and bring this into your everyday life. I know it's not easy to do, but I think this can be the source of really resilience and a great way to navigate all these challenges and to staying the course in all what is ahead.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I've been contemplating that kind of self-awareness and self-trust piece myself recently, and I heard a great phrase which was delegate tasks but don't delegate your values. As a leader, that's a really interesting balancing act that you need to take. So yeah, starting with yourself and trusting yourself. And there's something I say to my son as well, like, who is the one person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with?
Yeah.
So you've got to like yourself, trust yourself. So yeah, actually just taking that time out to recognize yourself is I think probably very much misunderstood and not done enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And we earlier spoke about this space, this Victor Frankl space between stimulus and response, and trying to increase that space. And in that space, maybe quickly ask yourself, what's your intention here right now? What's your intention? And I think that can shift completely
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
game.
absolutely. And you've really shared some really great practical things for everybody to think about, for all our listeners to think about. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Collette. Thank you for having me.